I am 32 years old. My husband, Mark, is 34. We have a son, Leo, who is 6. For 6 years, I have been putting money aside for him. It was not easy. Every spare dollar went into that account. It was my promise to him. A promise that he would have a choice. A choice I never had. My in-laws, George and Diana, always seemed nice enough. They smiled at family dinners. They brought Leo gifts on his birthday. But there was always something just under the surface. A comment here, a look there. It was a feeling I could never quite name. It started a few months ago. Mark began acting strange. He would get quiet when I talked about our budget. He would stare at his phone for hours, his face tight with worry. I asked him what was wrong. He always said the same thing. Nothing, just tired from work. I knew it was a lie. We had been married for 8 years. I knew his tired face. This was not it. This was a scared face. One evening, we were paying bills together. I pointed to the college fund statement. "Look how much it's grown," I said. I felt a surge of pride. It was over $50,000 now. A real safety net for our son. Mark did not look at the paper. He just stared at the table. "That's great, Sarah," he said. His voice was flat. There was no joy in it. That was the moment I knew something was seriously wrong. It was not just about work. It was about money. A week later, his parents came for Sunday dinner. Diana, my mother-in-law, was being extra sweet. She kept telling me how wonderful the food was. She praised my parenting. She said Leo was the smartest boy she had ever met. It felt like she was trying to sell me something. I was polite. I smiled and said thank you. But inside, I felt a knot of dread forming in my stomach. George, my father-in-law, was quiet as usual. He just nodded along to whatever Diana said. After dinner, as I was clearing the plates, Diana followed me into the kitchen. Mark and his father were watching television in the other room. "Sarah, dear," she started. Her voice was low and smooth. "We need to talk about something, as a family." I turned to face her, leaning against the counter. "Okay," I said. "What is it?" She wrung her hands together. It was a gesture I had seen her use before when she wanted something. It was meant to make her look helpless. "Well, it's a bit delicate," she said. She looked towards the living room as if to make sure no one could hear. "George and I have run into a little trouble. Some unexpected expenses came up." I waited. I did not offer any words of comfort. I just waited for her to get to the point. I knew there was a point. There was always a point with Diana. "We need some help," she said finally. "A loan. Just for a short while. To get us back on our feet." I felt my shoulders tense. A loan. I had heard those words before from other relatives. It never ended well. "How much do you need?" I asked. My voice was steady. I would not let her see that I was nervous. She took a deep breath. "It's a significant amount," she said. "We need about $50,000. The number hung in the air between us. $50,000. The exact amount in Leo's college fund. It could not be a coincidence. My heart started beating faster. This was not just a request for a loan. This was something else entirely. "Diana, we don't have that kind of money just sitting around," I said. It was the truth. All our savings, all our extra income went into 2 places: our retirement accounts and Leo's future. She gave me a sad little smile. "Oh, I know you don't, dear. Not in your checking account." She paused, letting her words sink in. "But Mark mentioned Leo's college fund. He said you've been so good about saving. So responsible." I felt a cold wave of anger wash over me. Mark had told her. He had discussed our son's private savings with his mother before he had even discussed the problem with me. The betrayal felt sharp and deep. "That money is for Leo," I said. My voice was low, but it was firm. "It's for his education. It's not for anything else." Diana's smile faded. Her eyes hardened just a little. Of course it is, dear. And that's wonderful. But family helps family. This is an emergency. We would pay it all back, of course. With interest if you want. I knew that was a lie. They were not good with money. If they were in a $50,000 hole, they would never be able to climb out of it and pay us back. The answer is no, I said. I am not touching our son's future to fix a problem you created. Her face changed completely. The sweet, helpless act was gone. Now she looked cold, angry. I see, she said. So your son's future is more important than your husband's parents. I did not say anything. The answer to that was yes. 1,000 times, yes. But saying it out loud would start a war. A war I was not sure I was ready for. But I was quickly realizing I might not have a choice. She turned and walked out of the kitchen without another word. I stood there for a long time, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. The plates were still on the table. The water was still running in the sink. But everything felt different. A line had been drawn. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that this was only the beginning. The fight for my son's future had just started. Later that night, after his parents had left, Mark came into the bedroom. He would not look me in the eye. He just started getting ready for bed, moving around the room in silence. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched him. I waited for him to say something. To apologize, to explain. But he said nothing. The silence was heavy and suffocating. You told her, I said finally. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like a knife. He stopped, his back still to me. I had to, Sarah, he said. They're in trouble. He turned to face me. His expression was a mix of guilt and frustration. They are my parents. I stood up. I felt a tremor of anger in my hands. And Leo is our son, I said. The money is for him. We promised him. I promised him. It's just a loan, he argued. They'll pay it back. My dad's business just had a slow year. It will pick up. I shook my head. I had heard this story before. His father's business was always having a slow year. They lived beyond their means. They took expensive vacations. They bought new cars they could not afford. This was not a surprise emergency. This was the result of years of bad decisions. No, Mark, I said. We are not giving them Leo's money. His face hardened. It's my money too, he said. I work for it. I contribute to that account. It was true. We both contributed. But the idea for the account, the discipline, the constant saving, that was all me. He was happy to spend. I was the one who always said, no, we have to save for Leo. And you're willing to take it from your own child? I asked. I could not believe we were even having this conversation. You're being selfish, he said. His voice was rising. You're thinking only of yourself and what you want. My family is in crisis, and you don't care. I stared at him, my heart pounding in my chest. This is what it feels like. This is the moment where everything changes. I am thinking of our son, I said. That is my only job, to protect him. And I will protect his future from your parents, and if I have to, I will protect it from you too. He looked at me, his eyes wide with shock and anger. He had never seen me like this. I had never felt like this before. This was not a discussion. This was a battle, and I was not going to lose. The next few days were cold. Mark and I barely spoke. We moved around each other in the house like strangers. He was angry. I was resolved. He thought my mind could be changed. He thought if he gave me the silent treatment, I would break. He was wrong. Every moment of silence just made my decision stronger. I was not just protecting Leo's money anymore. I was protecting myself from a family that I now saw was willing to consume us to save themselves. My phone rang one afternoon. It was Diana. I hesitated before answering. I knew what she wanted. I took a deep breath and swiped the screen. Hello, Diana, I said. My voice was calm and even. "Sarah, dear," she said. Her voice was syrupy sweet again. "I'm so sorry about the other night. I think we all got a bit emotional." I did not reply. I let her talk. "I was hoping you had some time to think," she said. "Mark is so worried about us. It's breaking his heart to see us struggle." She was trying a different tactic. Guilt. She was trying to frame me as the one hurting her son. "My decision hasn't changed, Diana," I said. "The money is for Leo." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear her smile tightening. "I see," she said. Her voice lost its sweetness. It was replaced by a sharp edge. "I think you're being very short-sighted, Sarah. Family is an investment. You put in, and you get back. If you're not willing to help us now, you can't expect us to be there for you later." It was a threat. A veiled, polite threat. That is how she operated. She never screamed or yelled. She just quietly tried to poison everything around you. "Is that a threat?" I asked. I wanted her to say it. I wanted to hear the words. "Of course not, dear," she said quickly. "It's just a fact of life. You reap what you sow." My anger flared, hot and bright. "The only thing I am sowing is a future for my son," I said, "and I will not let you or anyone else dig up the seeds." I hung up the phone. I did not wait for her to reply. My hand was shaking. I was not used to confrontation. I had always been the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over. But I was learning that peace sometimes comes at too high a price. The price they were asking for was my son's future, and I would not pay it. That evening, I decided to do some research. If they needed $50,000, it had to be for something specific. It was not just unexpected expenses. That was a phrase people used to hide the truth. I started with public records. I searched for their names, their address, their business. It did not take long to find something. There was a lien against their house. A tax lien from the state for $47,000. It was for unpaid business taxes going back 3 years. So that was it. It was not a medical emergency. It was not a slow year for the business. It was tax evasion. They had not paid their taxes for years, and now the government was coming to collect. The $50,000 figure made perfect sense. They needed the $47,000 for the lien, and probably a few thousand more for fees and penalties. They had lied. They had lied to Mark, and they had expected me to just hand over my son's money without asking any questions. I printed out the record of the lien. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at it. This piece of paper changed everything. This was not a family in trouble asking for help. This was a family of liars trying to get a bailout for their own irresponsible and illegal behavior. My resolve hardened into something like steel. There was no more room for doubt. There was no more room for negotiation. The answer was not just no. It was never. When Mark came home, I was still sitting at the table. The paper was in front of me. He saw it as soon as he walked in. His face went pale. He knew what it was. He dropped his keys on the counter and walked over to the table. He looked at the paper, then he looked at me. "Sarah," he started. "I can explain." I held up my hand to stop him. "No," I said. "No more explanations, no more lies. You knew about this, didn't you?" He looked down at the floor. He could not meet my eyes. "They told me it was a mistake," he mumbled. "Some kind of accounting error. They were trying to fix it." I let out a short, harsh laugh. "An accounting error for 3 years, Mark? Do you really believe that?" He did not answer. He just stood there, a grown man looking like a guilty child. "They lied to you," I said. "And you lied to me. You came to me asking for our son's college money based on a lie." I stood up and faced him. "This isn't about helping your parents, Mark. This is about enabling them. This is about cleaning up a mess they made because they think they are above the law." I tapped the paper with my finger. "This is not a family emergency. This is a crime." He finally looked at me. There was desperation in his eyes. "What do you want me to do, Sarah? They're going to lose their house." I felt a flicker of something, maybe pity, but I stamped it out. Pity was a luxury I could not afford right now. Pity would cost my son his future. They should have thought about that when they decided not to pay their taxes, I said. This is their problem to solve, not ours, and certainly not Leo's. He ran his hands through his hair. He was starting to panic. "But we have the money," he said. "We can fix this for them. We can just give them the money and it will all go away." I shook my head slowly. "No, Mark," I said. "It won't go away. This will happen again and again and again. As long as they know we will bail them out, they will never change. They will continue to be reckless and irresponsible, and they will keep coming to us. When does it stop? When Leo's account is empty? When our retirement is gone? When we are in debt too?" He had no answer. He knew I was right. He just did not want to admit it. Admitting it would mean he would have to stand up to his parents. He would have to tell them no. And it was clear that was something he had never done in his entire life. "I need you to make a choice," I said. My voice was quiet again. "It's them or us. It's their past or our son's future. You can't have both, so you need to decide who you are going to protect." I left him standing in the kitchen with the tax lien on the table. The choice was his, but I already knew what my choice was. And I would stick to it, with or without him. The next day, I took a step to protect the money. I called the financial institution that held Leo's college fund. I asked them about the security on the account. It was a joint account in both my name and Mark's name. That meant he could withdraw the money without my permission. I had never considered that a risk before. Now, it was the only thing I could think about. "Is there any way to freeze the account?" I asked the representative on the phone. "Or to require 2 signatures for any withdrawal?" The man on the other end was polite but firm. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said. "For a joint account, either party has full access. The only way to change that is to get a court order or for both account holders to sign a form agreeing to new terms." I knew Mark would never sign that form. Not now. I hung up the phone, my heart sinking. I felt trapped. The money was vulnerable. As long as Mark was under his mother's influence, he was a threat to our son's savings. I felt a surge of panic. What if he just took it? What if he drained the account while I was at work? He was desperate. His parents were desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. I had to find another way. I thought about moving the money to a new account in my name only. But that would be a huge escalation. It would be a declaration of war not just on his parents, but on him. It would probably be the end of our marriage. Was I ready for that? I looked at a picture of Leo on my desk. He was smiling, his 2 front teeth missing. Yes, I was ready to do whatever it took to protect that smile. I decided to talk to a friend first. Chloe. She was a lawyer. She was smart and practical. I needed someone to talk to who was not emotionally involved. I called her and asked if we could meet for coffee. I told her it was urgent. We met an hour later at a small cafe near her office. I told her everything. The strange behavior from Mark, the dinner with his parents, the demand for the money, the tax lien, the phone call with the bank. She listened patiently, her expression growing more and more serious as I spoke. When I was finished, she just shook her head. "Wow, Sarah," she said. "This is a mess." I nodded. "I know. I don't know what to do. I feel like if I do nothing, he's going to take the money. But if I move it, our marriage is over." "Is your marriage already over?" she asked gently. The question hit me hard. I had been so focused on the money, I had not really allowed myself to think about the bigger picture. Mark had lied to me. He had sided with his parents against his own child. He was willing to steal his son's future to cover up his parents' crimes. What kind of marriage was that? "I don't know," I whispered. I feel so betrayed. Chloe reached across the table and put her hand on mine. You have been betrayed, she said, by him and by them. And you are right to be angry. You are right to protect your son. She paused, thinking. Legally, moving the money into an account in your name only could get complicated in a divorce. It could be seen as hiding assets. But we're not there yet. So what do? I asked. I felt lost. You need more leverage, she said. The tax lien is good. It proves they're liars. But you need something more. Something that gives you power over them. Something that makes them back off. I had no idea what that could be. They seemed to hold all the cards. They had my husband on their side. Think about it, Chloe said. People who are this reckless with money usually have other secrets. Where did the money go? It wasn't just spent on cars and vacations. $47,000 in unpaid taxes is a lot. That means their income was much higher than they were reporting, or their spending was out of control in other ways. She was right. There was more to this story. I just had to find it. I don't know how to find anything else, I said. I don't have access to their bank accounts. Chloe smiled. You don't need it, she said. People like Diana, they like to boast. They like to show off. But they're also careless. Start looking at their social media. Look at public records for other properties or businesses. Talk to other family members. Carefully. See if they've mentioned any big purchases or trips. There's a trail somewhere. You just have to find it. I left the cafe feeling a little better. I had a plan. It was a long shot, but it was better than just sitting around waiting for Mark to empty the account. That night, I started digging. I spent hours online, searching for any information I could find about George and Diana. I looked through years of their social media posts. It was all there, just like Chloe said. Pictures of them on a cruise to Alaska, a new luxury sedan in their driveway. Diana showing off a diamond bracelet that she claimed was a family heirloom. I knew for a fact it was not. I had never seen it before. But it was one picture that caught my eye. It was from about a year ago. Diana was posing on a balcony. The caption said, "Enjoying our little slice of paradise." It was a beautiful view of the ocean. I looked closer at the picture. In the reflection of the glass door behind her, I could see the name of a resort. I typed the name into a search engine. It was a high-end resort in Florida. Not just a hotel. It was a place where people bought condos, vacation homes. My heart started to pound. There were no public records of them owning property in Florida. I had checked. That meant they either bought it through a company to hide their names or they were renting. But the caption said, "Our little slice of paradise." That did not sound like a rental. I kept digging. I searched for the resort's name along with their last name. Nothing. I tried searching for their business name. Nothing. Then I had an idea. Diana's maiden name. I did not know what it was. I had to go back to old family photos, looking for a wedding announcement. I finally found it in an old album. I typed her maiden name into the property search for that county in Florida. And there it was. A condo, purchased 2 years ago, for $300,000, paid for in cash. I felt the air leave my lungs. Cash. They had $300,000 in cash to buy a secret vacation condo, but they could not pay their taxes. They were crying poverty to us, trying to steal from their own grandson while they were sitting on a secret $500,000 asset. The rage I felt was so pure and so cold it almost took my breath away. They were not just liars, they were criminals, and they were monsters. I printed out the property record. I now had 2 pieces of paper, the tax lien and the deed to the condo. This was the leverage Chloe was talking about. This was more than leverage. This was a weapon, and I was going to use it. I was no longer just defending my son's future. I was going on the attack. The time for being scared and hurt was over. Now, it was time for them to be scared. I did not show the papers to Mark. Not yet. The element of surprise was my only advantage. I needed to choose the right moment to reveal what I knew. A direct confrontation with him would just give him time to warn his parents. They would come up with a new set of lies to explain it all away. No, this had to be done in person, with all of them in the same room. I wanted to see their faces when their world came crashing down around them. The opportunity came a few days later. Diana called Mark. I could hear his side of the conversation from the other room. Yes, Mom. I know. I'm trying. She's being difficult. Okay, Sunday. We'll be there. He hung up the phone and came into the living room. We're going to my parents for dinner on Sunday, he said. He did not ask. He told me. It was a command. He was trying to reassert his control. Okay, I said. My voice was calm. Inside, my heart was racing. This was it. This was the moment. He seemed surprised by my easy agreement. He had expected a fight. Good, he said, looking a little confused. Maybe you've had some time to think, to see reason. I just smiled a little. Oh, I've had plenty of time to think, Mark, I said. I've been thinking about a lot of things. For the next few days, I was a model of calm. I was polite to Mark. I did not bring up the money. I let him think he was winning. I let him believe that his pressure campaign was working. He was getting more confident. He started talking about his parents' financial troubles as if they were a shared problem that we were all going to solve together. I just nodded and listened, gathering my strength. I felt like a hunter, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. On Sunday, we got ready to go to his parents' house. As we were leaving, I slipped a folder into my purse. It contained the 2 pieces of paper, the tax lien, and the Florida condo deed. They felt heavy in my bag. They were the weight of truth. When we arrived, Diana greeted us at the door with a big fake smile. Sarah, Mark, Leo. So good to see you, she chirped. She was laying it on thick. She thought I was coming to surrender. George was in the living room watching golf on television. He grunted a hello. Dinner was tense. They made small talk, but the real issue was a giant, unspoken presence in the room. They kept looking at me, trying to gauge my mood. Mark was nervous. He kept clearing his throat. I ate my food slowly and deliberately. I did not say much. I let the silence stretch out. I was in control of the pace of this evening, and I was going to enjoy it. After dinner, Diana suggested we all sit in the living room and talk. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The ambush. George turned off the television. Mark sat on the couch next to me, but he did not touch me. Diana and George sat in the 2 armchairs opposite us. They looked like they were holding a trial, and I was the one on the stand. So, Diana began, folding her hands in her lap. Mark tells me you've had some time to reconsider. I looked at Mark. He would not meet my eyes. He just stared at his hands. I've had time to do some research, I said. My voice was clear and steady. It did not waver. Diana's smile faltered for a second. Research? She asked. What is there to research? It's a simple family matter. I don't think it's simple at all, I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out the folder. I opened it and took out the first piece of paper, the tax lien. I placed it on the coffee table in front of them. I think a $47,000 tax lien is actually quite complicated, I said. George's face went white. Diana stared at the paper, her mouth opening and closing silently. Mark looked like he was going to be sick. Where did you get that? Diana finally managed to say. Her voice was a hoarse whisper. It's a public record, I said. You know, for when people don't pay their taxes for 3 years, the government likes to keep track of that. I let my words hang in the air. The silence in the room was absolute. The pretense was over. The sweet family act was shattered. It was a mistake, George mumbled, his eyes still fixed on the paper. An accountant's error. I turned my gaze to him. That's what you told Mark. I said. But it's a strange mistake to make for 3 years in a row, isn't it? And it's an even stranger mistake to try and cover up by asking for your grandson's college fund. Diana's eyes flashed with anger. How dare you? She hissed. We are in trouble and you are attacking us. You're not in trouble, I said calmly. You're in a mess of your own making. A mess you lied about. You told us you had unexpected expenses. You didn't tell us you were being pursued by the state for tax fraud. Mark finally spoke up. Sarah, please, he begged. This isn't helping. I turned to him. No, Mark, I said. This is the first time anyone has helped in this situation, because the first step to helping is telling the truth. And the truth is, your parents are criminals. That's enough, Diana shouted, standing up. I will not be spoken to like this in my own home. I remained seated. I was not intimidated. I had one more card to play. You're right, I said. You probably won't be in this home for much longer if you don't pay that lien, which is a shame. But I suppose you'll always have your little slice of paradise. I looked directly at her. I saw a flicker of panic in her eyes. She knew. I reached into the folder and pulled out the second piece of paper. The deed to the Florida condo. I placed it on the coffee table right next to the tax lien. Your $300,000 condo, I said. The one you paid for in cash. The one you bought with the money you weren't paying in taxes. The one you didn't tell your own son about when you asked him to rob his child for you. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. George looked at the paper, then at his wife, his face a mask of confusion and betrayal. He clearly had not known the full story. Mark stared at the deed, his jaw slack with shock. He looked from the paper to his mother, then back again. He had been played for a fool. And Diana. Diana looked like she had been struck by lightning. Her face was a mess of shock, fury, and pure, unadulterated fear. She was exposed, her lies, her greed, her secret life, all laid bare on the coffee table. What is this? Mark stammered, pointing at the deed. He looked at his mother. Mom, what is this? Diana could not speak. She just sank back into her chair, her face pale. It was George who answered. His voice was low and trembling with rage. He was not looking at me. He was looking at his wife. Is this true, Diana? He asked. Did you buy a condo without telling me? She found her voice then. But it was not the sweet, manipulative voice I was used to. It was the shrill, panicked voice of a cornered animal. It was an investment, she cried. For our future? I was going to surprise you. George just shook his head slowly, a look of utter disgust on his face. An investment? While we were falling into debt? While the state was putting a lien on our house? You've been lying to me. For years. I stood up. My work here was done. I think this is a family matter, I said, using Diana's own words against her. I'll wait in the car. I turned to Mark. His face was a wreck of emotions. Confusion, hurt, anger. He was looking at his mother as if he had never seen her before. Mark, I said, you have a choice to make. You can stay here and sort through this mess of lies, or you can come home with me and our son. But let me be very clear. If you choose them, you are choosing to be a part of this. And we are done. I did not wait for his answer. I walked out of the room, out of the house, and got into my car. I left the folder on the coffee table. They could keep the evidence of their own destruction. I sat in the driver's seat, my hands on the wheel. My heart was pounding, but I felt a strange sense of calm. I had done it. I had faced them, and I had won. I had protected my son. I had exposed the truth. Whatever happened next, I knew I had done the right thing. About 10 minutes later, the passenger door opened. Mark got in. He did not say a word. He just stared straight ahead through the windshield. His face was pale. He looked broken. I started the car and drove away from that house. We drove in silence for a long time. I did not push him to talk. He needed to process what had just happened. His entire world had been turned upside down. The mother he had defended, the parents he had been willing to sacrifice his own son for, were not who he thought they were. When we were almost home, he finally spoke. His voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "They're selling the condo," he said. "My dad is furious. He said he's going to pay the taxes and then he's going to talk to a divorce lawyer." I did not respond. It was not my place. This was their family, their mess. "My mom, she just kept crying," he continued. "She said you ruined her life." I glanced at him. "She ruined her own life, Mark," I said softly. "She made her choices. We all have to live with our choices." He nodded slowly. "I know," he said. He turned to look at me. There were tears in his eyes. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," he said. "I was so stupid. I believed her. I almost let her destroy our family. I almost let her steal from Leo." I pulled the car into our driveway and turned off the engine. I turned to face him fully. "Yes, you did," I said. It was important that he understood the gravity of what he had done. I was not going to let him off the hook easily. "You chose them over us. You lied to me. You betrayed my trust." "I know," he said, his voice choking. "And I don't know if you can ever forgive me. But I am going to spend the rest of my life trying to earn back your trust. I promise, I am done with them. I am done letting her control me. From now on, it's just you and me and Leo. Our family. That's all that matters." I looked into his eyes. I saw real remorse there. Real pain. Maybe there was a chance for us, but it was going to be a long road. "Okay, Mark," I said. "Okay, but things are going to be different now. We are going to have very clear boundaries with your family, and our finances are going to be separate." He nodded immediately. "Anything," he said. "Whatever you want." I agree. "Leo's college fund is yours to manage. I'll open my own account. We will have a joint account for household bills, but our savings will be separate. You're right. I can't be trusted." It was a start. A painful, broken start, but a start nonetheless. The next few weeks were a blur. George called once to apologize. He sounded like a defeated man. He said they had sold the condo at a loss just to get rid of it quickly. They had paid the tax lien. The rest of the money was being divided up in what was turning into a very ugly divorce. He said Diana had moved in with her sister. He did not sound sad about it. He just sounded tired. Diana never called. She sent a few angry text messages to Mark, blaming me for everything. He showed them to me. He did not hide them. He wanted me to see that he was being transparent. He blocked her number after the third one. He was true to his word. He opened his own bank accounts. We set up a new financial structure for our family, one where I had control over our long-term savings, over Leo's future. The college fund was safe. I had won. A few months later, Chloe and I were having coffee again. I told her the whole story of that Sunday night. She listened, a wide grin spreading across her face. "You are my hero," she said when I was done. "You didn't just win, you annihilated them. With paper." I laughed. It felt good to laugh. "I didn't do it alone," I said. "Your advice was what gave me the idea to look for more. You gave me the map." "You still had to walk the path," she said. "And you did it perfectly. So what's next? For you and Mark?" I sighed. "We're in therapy," I said. "Both individually and as a couple. It's hard. There's a lot of damage to undo, but he's trying. He really is. He's learning to be his own man, not just his mother's son." "And you?" she asked. "Are you happy?" I thought about it for a moment. "I'm not happy about what happened," I said. "But I'm proud of myself. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I learned that I can fight for my family and win. And I learned that sometimes the most peaceful solution is to burn the whole thing down and start over." I took a sip of my coffee. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of it. And that was a feeling worth fighting for. The money in Leo's account was more than just money now. It was a symbol of my victory, a symbol of a promise I had kept, against all odds. And every time I looked at it, I would remember the price of that promise and the strength it took to pay it. The therapy sessions were difficult. Our first few meetings as a couple were mostly filled with long, painful silences. The therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Miller, encouraged us to talk about the betrayal. I found it hard to put words to the depth of the wound. Mark found it hard to face what he had done. He kept repeating that he was sorry, but I needed more than that. I needed to understand why. "Mark, why did you believe her?" I asked in one session. "After all the years of seeing how they spend money, why did you just accept their story without question?" He looked at his hands, a familiar gesture of shame. "Because it was easier," he said quietly. "It was easier to believe them than to face the truth." The truth was that my parents are not the people I thought they were. And the truth was that I was afraid to stand up to my mother. Dr. Miller prodded gently. "What were you afraid of, Mark?" He took a shaky breath. "Disappointing her," he said. "Making her angry. My whole life, my job was to keep my mom happy. If she was happy, everything was fine. If she was unhappy, she would make everyone miserable. My dad just checked out. He went to work, came home, and hid behind the television. So it was up to me." It was a revelation. I had always seen him as weak, as an enabler. But hearing him talk, I started to see him as a victim too. A child who had been trained from birth to manage his mother's emotions. A child who had never been allowed to have his own. It did not excuse his behavior, but it helped me understand it. It was the first small step towards forgiveness. My own therapy sessions focused on boundaries. I realized I had never had good ones. I had always tried to be accommodating, to be the cool daughter-in-law. I had swallowed my own feelings to keep the peace. That night in their living room, I had not just found my voice, I had built a wall. My therapist helped me see that the wall did not have to be a prison. It could be a fortress, a place from which I could safely decide who to let in and who to keep out. We started making new rules for our life. No more unscheduled visits from any family members, no more financial entanglement of any kind. Holidays would be spent either just the three of us or with my family, who had never once asked us for a dime. Mark agreed to everything. He seemed relieved to have clear rules to follow. It was as if he was being given permission to finally be the husband and father he was supposed to be. One Saturday, about 6 months after the confrontation, Mark's dad, George, called. He asked if he could come over to see Leo. He said he would understand if I said no. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to say no, to cut them all out completely. But then I looked at Leo, playing on the floor with his toy cars. He deserved to have a grandfather, if that grandfather could be a positive influence. "You can come, George," I said. "But we need to be clear. There will be no discussion of Diana. There will be no talk about money. You are here to see your grandson. That's it." He agreed immediately. "Of course, Sarah," he said. "I understand completely." He came over that afternoon. It was awkward at first, but he kept his promise. He played with Leo. He asked me about my work. He was quiet, but he seemed different, calmer, less burdened. Before he left, he pulled me aside. "Sarah," he said, "I know I've said it before, but I am truly sorry. For everything. I was blind for a long time. I let Diana run our lives, and I let her hurt you and Mark. I should have been a better husband and a better father." I just nodded. There was nothing else to say. He had lost his wife and, in many ways, his son. He was living with his consequences. As for Diana, we heard about her through the grapevine of distant relatives. She was telling everyone a wild story about how I was a gold digger who had manipulated Mark and turned him against his own loving mother. She claimed I had stolen money from them and forced them to sell their beloved vacation home. Some people believed her, some did not. I found that I did not care. The people who mattered, my friends, my family, they knew the truth, and their opinions were the only ones I valued. One day, I got a friend request on social media from a woman I did not know. I looked at her profile. She was Diana's sister, the one she was living with. I was about to delete it when I saw we had a mutual friend, a cousin of Mark's who had always been kind to me. I sent the cousin a message and asked about the sister. "Oh, she's a good person," the cousin replied. "She's not like Diana at all. She's probably reaching out to apologize. She's been horrified by Diana's behavior." Curiosity got the better of me. I accepted the friend request. A message from her appeared almost instantly. "Sarah, I know this is strange and you have no reason to talk to me. My name is Carol. I'm Diana's sister. I just wanted to tell you how sorry I am for what my sister did to you and your family. I've been living with her for months and it has been a nightmare. She refuses to take any responsibility for her actions. It's always someone else's fault. I just wanted you to know that not everyone in our family is like her, and I think you are an incredibly strong woman for standing up to her." I was touched by her message. I wrote back a simple, "Thank you, Carol. That means a lot." We exchanged a few more polite messages. She told me Diana was making her life miserable and that she was trying to get her to move out. She had overstayed her welcome by months. Apparently, Diana had burned through her half of the condo money on designer clothes and expensive lunches, trying to keep up the appearance of wealth. Now she was broke again. And she was angry at the world. The news gave me a grim sense of satisfaction. It was not just that she was facing consequences, it was that her true nature was being revealed to everyone around her. She could no longer hide behind her mask of sweet motherhood. The mask was gone, and what was left was ugly and greedy and small. She had not been ruined by me. She had been ruined by herself. Life with Mark continued to improve. It was slow, patient work. We were rebuilding our marriage brick by brick. The trust was coming back, little by little. He started taking an active role in our finances, not just handing his paycheck over. He learned how to budget. He set up his own retirement account. He was proud of it. He showed me his statements, not because I asked, but because he wanted to share his progress with me. He was becoming a partner, a real partner. One evening, we were sitting on the couch after Leo had gone to bed. "I was thinking," he said, "about Leo's college fund. I know it's your account now, and I'm fine with that, but I want to contribute more. I got a raise at work, and I want to put all of it towards his education." I looked at him. There was no angle, no manipulation, just a sincere desire to do the right thing for his son. "I'd like that, Mark," I said. And for the first time in almost a year, I reached for his hand. He took it, his grip firm and sure. We sat there in silence for a while, just holding hands. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental. It felt like coming home after a long and terrible storm. The house was still standing. The foundation was damaged, but it was repairable. And we were finally, together, starting the work of rebuilding. A year after the confrontation, Leo had his 7th birthday. We threw him a small party in our backyard with a few of his friends from school. My parents were there. George came, and he brought Leo a new bicycle. He and Mark were civil to each other. It was not warm, but it was not hostile either. It was a fragile new beginning. Diana was not invited. No one even mentioned her name. It was as if she had just faded away from our lives. As I watched Leo laugh and play with his friends, a profound sense of peace washed over me. Everything I had done, every hard conversation, every sleepless night, it was all for this. For this moment of simple, uncomplicated joy for my son. I had protected his future, and in doing so, I had secured my own. I was not just a wife or a mother anymore. I was a warrior, and I had the scars to prove it. But I also had the spoils of victory: a stronger marriage, a safer future, and a deep, unshakable knowledge of my own strength. Late that night, After the party was over and the house was quiet, I opened my laptop and looked at Leo's college fund. The balance was higher than ever. Mark had been making his extra contributions, just like he promised. I thought about the $50,000, the number that had almost torn our family apart. It seemed so small now, compared to what had been at stake. It was never about the money. It was about respect. It was about trust. It was about the line between family and parasites. I closed the laptop and went to bed. Mark was already asleep. I curled up next to him. The road ahead was still long, but for the first time, I was not afraid of the journey. I knew who I was. I knew what I was capable of, and I knew that no one would ever threaten my family again. The price of peace was eternal vigilance, and I was prepared to be very, very vigilant. The second year after the incident was one of quiet growth. We settled into our new normal. The therapy sessions became less frequent, moving from weekly to monthly. We had learned the tools to communicate, to handle disagreements without them escalating into betrayals. Mark continued to build a relationship with his father, separate from the influence of his mother. They would go to baseball games together or work on projects in the garage. It was a simple, healthy connection that had been impossible when Diana was in the middle of everything. I received another message from Carol, Diana's sister. It was a short, sad note. She said Diana had finally moved out. She had apparently met a man online and had moved to another state to live with him. Good riddance, Carol wrote. But I almost feel sorry for the new guy. He has no idea what he's in for. I felt a brief, cold chill. Diana was like a storm, and she had just moved on to create havoc in someone else's life. But she was no longer our storm. That was all that mattered. One of the biggest changes was in me. I had become more assertive in all areas of my life. At work, I asked for a promotion that I had been hesitant to pursue before. I laid out my accomplishments and my goals for the company with a confidence that surprised even myself. I got the promotion. It came with a significant raise, most of which went straight into our savings. I was building a fortress of financial security around my family, brick by brick. I also reconnected with old friends I had drifted away from during the years I was trying to placate my in-laws. I had spent so much energy managing their drama that I had neglected my own needs and my own relationships. I started going out for dinner with my friends once a month. We would laugh and talk for hours. It was like breathing fresh air after being trapped in a stuffy room for too long. Mark noticed the change in me. "You seem happier," he said one night. "Lighter." I smiled. "I am," I said. "I feel like I got myself back." He reached out and touched my cheek. "I'm so glad," he said. "I'm so sorry I ever tried to take that away from you." It was in these small, quiet moments that I knew our marriage was truly healing. The grand apologies were necessary at first, but it was the consistent daily acknowledgement of the past and the commitment to a better future that was rebuilding the trust between us. Leo, of course, was oblivious to the adult drama that had swirled around him. He was a happy, thriving kid. He loved school, he was making friends, and he was obsessed with learning to ride the new bike his grandfather had given him. Watching him wobble down the sidewalk, his face a mixture of intense concentration and pure joy, I felt a fierce, protective love that was sharper and clearer than ever before. I knew exactly what I was fighting for. Sometimes a memory would surface. The coldness in Diana's eyes, the desperation in Mark's voice, the weight of those 2 pieces of paper in my purse. And I would feel a shadow of the old anger and fear, but it did not consume me anymore. It was just a reminder, a scar that told a story of betrayal, but also a story of resilience. A story of a mother who refused to let anyone steal her child's future. We decided to take a family vacation, just the 3 of us. We went to the mountains for a week. We rented a small cabin by a lake. We hiked and fished and told stories by the fire at night. There were no demands, no expectations, no underlying tensions. It was just us, a family, whole and healthy. On our last night there, as we were roasting marshmallows, Leo looked up at me and said, This is the best trip ever, Mom. My heart felt so full it might burst. I think so too, buddy, I said, and I looked over the fire at Mark. He was smiling. A real, genuine smile. The kind I had not seen in years. We were going to be okay. We were already okay. The storm had passed, and we had survived.